The massive space station called Harmony Prime floated in the empty space between star systems. It was built to be neutral ground where different alien races could meet without fighting. The station was huge, with rooms for thousands of beings, and meeting halls that could hold entire armies. Today was the monthly Peace Summit, and ships from 12 different worlds had arrived. Each ship brought their best warriors and diplomats. The Vorthak came in their bioships that looked alive and breathing. Their warriors were tall creatures with extra arms that had been changed by science to make them stronger and faster. They wore armor that moved like skin and carried weapons that shot living projectiles. The Kalani arrived in crystal ships that sparkled like diamonds. Their battle monks were thin, pale beings who could read minds and move things without touching them. They wore robes made of some kind of crystal that changed colors as they walked. Their weapons were staffs that glowed with mental energy. The Threx brought the biggest ship of all. It was covered in heavy armor and bristled with weapons. Their warriors were built like tanks, wearing power suits that made them 3 times bigger than normal. Each suit had enough firepower to level a city block. They marched in perfect lines, their heavy boots making the station floors shake. Ship after ship docked at Harmony Prime. Each alien race tried to bring more impressive warriors than the others. The Aquatic Syndicate brought their water-breathing, soldiers in special armor filled with liquid. The Sky Clans arrived with their flying warriors who had wings instead of arms. The Hive Collective sent their bug-like soldiers who moved as one mind. Everyone was trying to show how strong and important they were. The docking bays filled with the sounds of marching feet, war chants, and weapons being prepared for inspection. Alien soldiers practiced combat moves and showed off their deadliest equipment. Then Earth's ship arrived. It was small and plain, painted in simple white and blue colors. No weapons were visible on its hull. No armor plates or shields covered its surface. It looked more like a transport ship than a military vessel. The other aliens watched with interest as it docked quietly at the far end of the station. The airlock opened and one person walked out. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho was a middle-aged human man wearing a simple gray business suit. He carried a black briefcase in one hand and a metal thermos in the other. No guards walked with him. No weapons hung from his belt. He looked like he was going to a business meeting, not a gathering of warriors. The alien representatives stared in confusion. Where was Earth's military escort? Where were their battle-ready soldiers? Every other species had brought dozens or hundreds of their finest fighters. Humans had sent one man in a suit. Kim Tae-ho walked calmly through the station corridors. Alien warriors towered over him on all sides. Some had claws that could cut through steel. Others had tentacles covered in poison spikes. Many carried energy weapons that could melt holes in starship hulls. The human diplomat nodded politely to each group he passed, as if he were walking through a peaceful marketplace instead of an armed gathering. The main meeting hall was enormous, with a circular table that could seat hundreds. Each alien delegation took their assigned seats, with their military guards standing behind them in impressive formations. The Vorthak warriors flexed their bio-enhanced muscles. The Kalani monks floated slightly above the ground, their crystal armor catching the light. The Threx soldiers stood like metal statues, their power suits humming with energy. Kim Tae-ho took his seat at the section marked for Earth. Behind him there was empty space where his military escort should have been standing. He opened his briefcase, took out some papers, and unscrewed the cap of his thermos to pour himself a cup of coffee. The smell of the Earth beverage drifted across the table, Chairman Vex Thule of the Andromedan Collective called the meeting to order. He was a tall, thin being with gray skin and large black eyes. His voice sounded like metal scraping against metal when he spoke through the translation system. "We gather once again to discuss peace between our worlds," Vex Thule announced. "Each delegation will present their concerns and proposals. But first, we must address a matter that has troubled this council for many months." The chairman's black eyes turned toward Kim Tae-ho. "Ambassador, for 3 years, Earth has attended these summits without any military representation. This breaks with galactic tradition and shows disrespect to the other members of this council." Murmurs of agreement came from around the table. General Korthak of the Threx leaned forward, his power suit making mechanical noises. "Every civilized species brings their warriors to show strength and earn respect. How can we trust beings who hide their military might?" Battlemaster Zeftar of the Kalani nodded, his crystal crown flashing. "In our culture, only cowards refuse to display their battle readiness. Are humans so weak that they fear showing their soldiers?" Admiral Vothron of the Aquatic Syndicate made bubbling sounds that translated as laughter. "Perhaps Earth has no real military at all. They joined our community after losing a small fight with Threx scouts. Maybe that was all the warriors they had." Kim Tae-ho sipped his coffee and listened patiently. When the complaints finished, he set down his cup and smiled. "Honored representatives, Earth appreciates your concern. We believe in solving problems, through talking, not through shows of force. We see no need for military displays at peace talks. That is exactly the problem." General Korthak slammed his armored fist on the table, making it shake. "Peace comes from strength. How can we respect a species that refuses to prove their power?" The other aliens made sounds of agreement. In their minds, Kim Tae-ho's calm response only proved that humans were weak. They had seen Earth's small fleet and simple technology when humans first made contact. Surely this was a species of merchants and scientists who had stumbled into space travel by accident. Commander Altheris of the Sky Clans spread his wings in a threatening display. "We demand that Earth send proper military representatives to future summits. If you cannot show strength, you have no place at this table." Kim Tae-ho remained calm. He picked up his thermos and poured more coffee. "I will pass along your request to my government. Earth always considers the wishes of our galactic neighbors." The meeting continued with other business, but the tension remained. Alien warriors whispered to each other about the weak humans who were too scared to bring soldiers to a peace talk. They made jokes about Earth's small military and primitive weapons. Kim Tae-ho sat quietly through it all, taking notes and drinking his coffee. He knew something that the others did not know. He knew why Earth never brought their army to peace summits, but he also knew that these proud alien warriors were not ready to learn that truth. Not yet. 2 weeks after the peace summit, Kim Tae-ho received a message that made him shake his head in disappointment. The alien species had grown tired of waiting for Earth to show military strength. They wanted proof that humans could fight. The message came from General Korthak of the Threx military caste. His deep, mechanical voice filled Kim's office through the communication system. "Ambassador Kim, the Galactic Council has voted. Earth must demonstrate their military capabilities or lose." Their seat at future peace talks, Kim leaned back in his chair and rubbed his temples. "General, what exactly are you asking for?" "Combat exercises," Korthak replied without hesitation. "Each species will send their finest warriors to show their strength. We will conduct simulated battles to prove our military worth." If Earth's forces can compete with ours, you will keep your place on the council. If not, you will be removed as too weak to matter." The human ambassador sighed. He had hoped to avoid this situation, but the alien species were too proud and suspicious to let it go. When and where would these exercises take place? Nexus Station, in 1 month. Bring whatever forces Earth considers worthy of representing your species. We will see if humans are warriors or merely talkers. After the communication ended, Kim activated his quantum link to Earth. The signal traveled instantly across space to reach the capital city of Seoul. Defense Minister Park Soo-jin answered within minutes. Park was a small woman in her 50s, with short gray hair and intelligent eyes. She had served in the Korean military for 30 years before becoming a government minister. When Kim explained the situation, she listened without interruption. "So they want a demonstration," Park said when he finished. "How interesting. They think we're hiding our weakness when we're actually hiding our strength." "Minister, what should I tell them?" Park smiled, but it was not a warm smile. "Tell them we accept their challenge. We'll send a small representative sample of Earth's military capabilities." "How small? 4 people should be enough." Kim blinked in surprise. "4? Minister, the other species are bringing hundreds of warriors. Some are bringing thousands. Trust me, Ambassador. 4 will be more than sufficient." After ending the call with Kim, Park contacted the Special Operations Command. She needed volunteers for a very unusual mission. The soldiers would need to demonstrate Earth's military capabilities while being careful not to reveal too much. Within hours, she was reviewing files of potential candidates. The mission required soldiers who were skilled but also controlled. They needed to be impressive enough to earn respect but restrained enough not to start a war. The first person selected was Captain Lee Min-ho from the Korean Special Forces. He was 32 years old and had served in operations across 3 continents. His record showed expertise in infiltration, demolitions, and survival warfare. More importantly, he was known for staying calm under pressure and following orders. Exactly. Sergeant Major Cho Ji-woo came from the Marine Corps. She was 28 and had led assault teams in urban combat zones. Her specialty was close-quarters fighting and tactical coordination. She could take apart enemy positions with surgical precision or brute force, depending on what the mission required. Lieutenant Park Da-hyun represented the Army Rangers. At 26, she was one of the youngest officers ever selected for the elite unit. Her talents included sniper operations, reconnaissance, and wilderness survival. She could move through any terrain without being detected and strike targets from impossible distances. Staff Sergeant Kim Bo-ram was an Air Force combat controller. She was 30 years old and specialized in coordinating air support, communications, and electronic warfare. In combat zones, she was the link between ground forces and orbital assets. She could call down fire from space or disable enemy systems with her equipment. Park met with the 4 soldiers in a secure briefing room beneath the Defense Ministry building. Dr. Yoon Hairi, Earth's leading expert on alien psychology, joined them for the mission briefing. Dr. Yoon was a thin woman with thick glasses who spent most of her time studying alien cultures. She had advised the government on first contact protocols and continued to analyze how different species thought and behaved. "The aliens don't understand how humans fight," she began, activating a holographic display. "Most galactic species evolved as pack hunters or hive minds. Their warfare is based on group tactics, formal combat rules, and displays of dominance. The display showed videos of alien military exercises. Thousands of warriors moved in perfect formation, their weapons gleaming in the light. They fought like ancient armies with clear battle lines and honorable single combat between champions. They see war as a contest between organized forces, Dr. Yoon continued. Victory goes to whoever has the strongest warriors, the best weapons, or the most sophisticated tactics. Combat is ritualized and follows strict codes of conduct. Captain Lee raised his hand. How is that different from human warfare, Doctor? Doctor? Yoon smiled grimly. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on a death world. We didn't develop formal combat rules because we were too busy trying to survive. When humans fight, the only rule is to win by any means necessary. She showed them historical footage from Earth's wars. Soldiers crawling through mud and snow, fighting in cities where every building was a fortress, using whatever weapons they could find to stay alive. The aliens trained to fight other organized armies, she explained. Humans train to fight anything, anywhere, under any conditions. They expect honorable combat between warriors. We specialize in making our enemies disappear without them ever seeing us coming. Park Soo-jin stepped forward. Your mission is to demonstrate standard Earth military protocols. Nothing fancy, nothing extreme. Show them how human soldiers operate in a normal combat situation. What are our rules of engagement? Asked Sergeant Major Cho. Treat it as a training exercise. Non-lethal force only. Try not to embarrass them too badly. Lieutenant Park looked confused. Minister, if we're holding back, how will this convince them we're strong? Park Soo-jin's smile became even less warm. Lieutenant, you're not holding back. This is us being gentle. The aliens have no idea what human soldiers are truly capable of when we stop playing nice. Dr. Yoon nodded in agreement. The team you're facing will include bio-enhanced super soldiers, psychic warriors, and troops in power armor that could destroy tanks. They'll outnumber you by thousands to one. They expect you to be overwhelmed and defeated quickly. And our actual objective? Asked Staff Sergeant Kim. Win, Park Soo-jin replied simply. Show them that numbers and fancy equipment don't matter when you're fighting humans who know what they're doing. Captain Lee studied the alien military data on his tablet. What about their weaknesses? Dr. Yoon pulled up detailed files on each species. The Threks rely on heavy armor and overwhelming firepower, but they're slow to adapt to changing situations. The Kalani have powerful psychic abilities, but they've never faced opponents who don't fight fair. The Vorthak are individually strong, but they depend on pack tactics that assume their enemies will engage them directly. In other words, Sergeant Major Cho said with a grin, they've never fought anyone who breaks the rules they're used to. Exactly, Dr. Yoon confirmed. They're expecting a fair fight between honorable warriors. What they're going to get is 4 humans who were trained to survive against impossible odds. The briefing continued for several more hours. The team studied alien equipment, tactics, and psychology. They planned their approach and selected their equipment. Everything they needed would fit in 4 standard military packs. As the meeting ended, Captain Lee had one final question. Minister, what happens if we reveal too much about human capabilities? Park Soo-jin considered her answer carefully. Then we'll have to explain to our new galactic neighbors why we prefer diplomacy over warfare. And trust me, Captain, that's a conversation nobody wants to have. Nexus Station was even bigger than Harmony Prime. It was built specifically for military exercises and war games between different alien species. The station had massive training areas, weapon ranges, and simulation chambers that could create any kind of battlefield imaginable. Ships began arriving 3 days before the scheduled combat demonstration. Each alien species brought their very best warriors, their most advanced equipment, and their greatest military minds. They came to prove their strength and to witness Earth's inevitable defeat. The Kalani battle fleet arrived first, their crystal ships forming perfect geometric patterns in space. 50 psychic warriors disembarked, each one wearing armor that looked like it was carved from a single diamond. Their leader, Battlemaster Zeftar, stood 7 feet tall with pale blue skin and eyes that glowed with mental energy. His crystal crown marked him as one of the most powerful psychics in the galaxy. The Kalani warriors moved in perfect synchronization, their minds linked together in a combat network. They could share thoughts instantly, coordinate attacks without speaking, and combine their psychic powers to devastating effect. Their crystal staffs hummed with energy that could shatter steel or stop a heart from beating. Next came the Vorthak in their living ships that pulsed like giant hearts. Their bio-enhanced soldiers were creatures of nightmare, with extra arms grafted onto their bodies and organs modified for maximum combat efficiency. Each warrior was 8 feet tall with muscle fibers that had been replaced by synthetic materials, 10 times stronger than natural tissue. The Vorthak leader was War Alpha Grathek, a monster who had survived over 100 battles. His body was more machine than flesh, with biomechanical implants that let him interface directly with his weapons. Acid flowed through tubes in his arms, feeding projectile launchers that could spit death across vast distances. The Threks arrived, with the most impressive display of all. Their massive dreadnought ship bristled with enough weapons to destroy small planets. From its belly emerged 1,000 warriors in power armor that made them look like walking tanks. Each suit was 12 feet tall and weighed several tons, equipped with energy shields, plasma cannons, and missile launchers. General Korth Ak led them personally, his custom armor decorated with the symbols of every enemy he had defeated. His suit was larger than the others, painted in deep red with gold trim. Twin plasma rifles were mounted on his shoulders, and his right arm had been replaced with a cannon that could punch through starship hulls. Other species followed with their own impressive forces. The aquatic syndicate brought water breathing, soldiers in armored suits filled with liquid. The Sky Clans arrived with their winged warriors who could fly at supersonic speeds. The Hive Collective sent bug-like creatures that moved as one mind and could coordinate attacks with perfect timing. By the second day, over 5,000 alien warriors had gathered on Nexus Station. The docking bays echoed with the sounds of weapons being tested, armor being adjusted, and war chants being practiced. It looked like preparation for an actual invasion rather than a training exercise. The aliens spent hours showing off their equipment and abilities. Kalani warriors demonstrated their telekinetic powers by lifting massive objects without touching them. Vorthak soldiers tested their bioweapons on practice targets, leaving craters in reinforced walls. Threk's troops conducted formation drills that shook the entire station with their synchronized movements. Admiral Vothran of the Aquatic Syndicate set up a betting pool on how long Earth's forces would last. Most aliens wagered that the humans would surrender within the first 5 minutes. Some optimistic bets gave them as long as 10 minutes before total defeat. "I almost feel sorry for them," Commander Altheris of the Sky Clans remarked as he watched Threk soldiers demolish training targets. "Humans seem like decent beings for merchants and scientists. It's unfortunate they tried to play with real warriors." Battlemaster Zeftar adjusted his crystal crown thoughtfully. "Perhaps this will teach them humility. Some species are meant to trade and build, not to fight. There is no shame in knowing your place. On the third day, Earth's ship finally arrived. It was the same small, plain vessel that had brought Ambassador Kim Tae-ho to previous meetings. No weapons were visible on its hull. No armor protected its surface. It looked more like a civilian transport than a military ship. The alien commanders watched with growing amusement as the ship docked at the smallest available berth. They expected to see hundreds of human soldiers marching out in formation, ready to attempt their doomed demonstration. Instead, 4 people walked calmly down the ramp. Captain Lee Min-ho was a man of average height wearing simple green and brown clothing. His equipment looked basic compared to alien technology, a rifle that seemed crude next to plasma weapons, a pack that appeared small next to power armor systems, and gear that looked like it came from a primitive world. Sergeant Major Cho. Ji-woo was a compact woman who moved with quiet confidence. Her weapons were equally unremarkable, a smaller rifle, some kind of pistol, and various tools that the aliens couldn't identify. She looked around the massive station with interest but no fear. Lieutenant Park De-yoon carried what appeared to be a longer version of the human rifles, along with equipment that might have been communication gear. She was young and seemed almost casual as she observed the thousands of alien warriors preparing for combat. Staff Sergeant Kim Borum had the most mysterious equipment, devices that looked like advanced computers mixed with radio equipment. The aliens couldn't determine what her gear was supposed to do, but it seemed far less impressive than their own technology. The 4 humans set up a small camp in the area assigned to Earth's forces. They worked quickly and efficiently, assembling shelters and organizing their equipment with practiced ease. Their movements were smooth and coordinated, showing they had worked together before. General Korthak approached their camp with several other alien commanders. His power armor towered over the humans as he looked down at them. "So, these are Earth's finest warriors?" His voice was amplified through his suit's speakers, making it boom across the area. Captain Lee looked up from checking his rifle. "We're here to represent Earth's military in your demonstration, General. We're ready to begin whenever you are." War Alpha Grathek laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 4 against 5,000? This will be over before it begins, Battlemaster. Zeftar studied the humans with his glowing eyes. "I sense no fear from them. Either they are very brave or very foolish. Maybe both." Admiral Vothran bubbled through his water-filled helmet. "Humans are known for their strange behavior. Perhaps they don't understand what they're facing." Lieutenant Park finished setting up some kind of antenna and joined the conversation. "We understand perfectly, Admiral. You want to see how Earth's military operates in a combat situation. We're here to show you." Commander Altheris spread his wings in what might have been laughter. "Show us? You have 4 soldiers with primitive weapons facing the greatest warriors in the galaxy. What could you possibly show us, except how quickly humans can be defeated?" Staff Sergeant Kim looked up from her electronic equipment. "I guess we'll find out tomorrow, won't we?" The alien commanders exchanged glances. The humans seemed completely calm about facing impossible odds. Either they had some secret weapon they were hiding, or they were too naive to understand their situation. That evening, as the aliens held victory celebrations before the battle even began, the 4 humans sat quietly around their small camp. They checked their equipment one final time, reviewed their plans, and prepared for what was coming. Captain Lee studied a map of the exercise area on his tablet. Standard search and destroy scenario, multiple objectives, varied terrain, full-spectrum combat. Sergeant Major Cho nodded as she cleaned her weapons. They're expecting us to fight like them. Formations, direct confrontation, honorable combat. Poor planning on their part, Lieutenant Park observed while calibrating her rifle's scope. Never assume your enemy will fight the way you want them to. Staff Sergeant Kim ran diagnostics on her communication gear. Electronic warfare capabilities are good. I should be able to disrupt their coordination once things get interesting. As the station's lights dimmed to simulate night, the humans settled in for rest. Tomorrow would prove whether Earth deserved a place among the galaxy's military powers. The aliens were confident of victory. They had no idea what was about to hit them. The combat simulation began at dawn, station time. The exercise area was massive, covering hundreds of square kilometers of holographic terrain. The computer system created a realistic planetary environment with cities, forests, mountains, rivers, and industrial complexes. Each species would start from their own base and compete to capture strategic objectives while defending their territory. General Korthak stood in the command center overlooking the battlefield. His power armor gleamed under the artificial lights as he watched deployment screens showing the positions of all forces. The Threx had brought 1,000 warriors in heavy power suits, supported by armored vehicles and air support units. Battlemaster Zeftar's Kalani warriors took up positions in the mountain regions, their crystal armor reflecting the simulated sunlight. 50 psychic warriors might seem like a small force, but each one had the mental power to devastate dozens of enemies. They moved in perfect coordination, their minds linked in a battle network that made them nearly unstoppable. War Alpha Grathek deployed his Vorthak soldiers across the forest areas where their bio-enhanced bodies could use natural cover effectively. Each warrior was a living weapon, with acid projectiles, poisoned claws, and armor that could heal itself when damaged. They spread out in hunting packs, ready to track and destroy any enemy they encountered. The other species positioned their forces with equal care. Admiral Vothran's aquatic soldiers claimed the river systems and coastal areas. Commander Altheris positioned his flying warriors to control the airspace above urban zones. The Hive Collective sent their bug-like soldiers into the underground, tunnel networks beneath the cities. In total, over 5,000 of the galaxy's finest warriors were ready for combat. Their weapons were charged, their armor was sealed, and their battle plans were set. Victory would go to whoever could capture the most objectives while eliminating their enemies. The 4 humans appeared on the deployment screen as tiny dots in the center of the map. They had been given a small base in an unremarkable valley, with basic defensive structures and limited supplies. Compared to the massive fortresses and advanced equipment of the other species, Earth's starting position looked pathetic. "Begin simulation," announced the station's computer system. Immediately, the alien forces burst into action. Thousands of warriors moved out from their bases in coordinated formations that had been practiced for years. The Threx advanced in armored columns, their heavy weapons ready to blast through any opposition. Kalani battle monks floated above the ground in perfect diamond patterns, their psychic powers scanning for enemies. Vorthak hunters spread through the forests like a deadly plague, their bio-enhanced senses tracking every movement and smell. The Sky Clans took to the air in massive formations, their wings creating thunderous sounds as they soared toward their objectives. In the command center, alien leaders watched their forces advance with confidence. This would be a proper demonstration of military might, with organized armies clashing in honorable combat. The only question was which species would prove strongest when the real fighting began. "Where are the humans?" asked Admiral Vothran, studying the tactical display. The four tiny dots representing Earth's forces had vanished from the screen shortly after the simulation began. General Korthak checked his sensors. They're not at their base anymore. Probably retreated to hide somewhere until the fighting is over. Commander Altheris laughed as his aerial scouts reported empty terrain where the humans should have been. Perhaps they realized they were outmatched and decided to surrender early. That would be the smart thing to do. Battlemaster Zeftar expanded his psychic awareness, trying to sense human minds anywhere on the battlefield. I cannot detect them. Either they have left the exercise area entirely, or they are using some kind of mental shielding. The alien forces continued their advance, engaging each other in massive battles for control of strategic points. Threk's heavy armor clashed, with Kalani psychic warriors in spectacular displays of firepower and mental energy. Vorthak hunters fought Sky Clan flyers in running battles across the forest canopy. For the first hour, it was everything the aliens expected from a proper military exercise. Formations maneuvered against formations, heroes dueled heroes, and territory changed hands through superior tactics and overwhelming force. The combat was brutal but honorable, following the traditional rules of warfare that all civilized species understood. The humans remained invisible. They must have malfunctioned. Equipment, War Alpha Grathek suggested, as his forces secured a major industrial complex. Primitive technology failing under stress would explain their disappearance. Or they simply fled, General Korthak replied while directing his troops to capture a strategic mountain pass. Some species are not meant for combat. There is no shame in admitting weakness. As the second hour began, the alien commanders started making jokes about Earth's missing warriors. They composed humorous messages to send to Ambassador Kim Tae-ho, offering to declare humans the winners of the strategic withdrawal category. It would be a gentle way to let them save face after this embarrassment. Then the first anomaly occurred. Kalani communications array went offline without warning. The psychic warriors manning the station reported that their equipment simply stopped working, as if someone had disconnected all the power cables. But their sensors showed no enemies in the area, and their mental scans detected no hostile minds nearby. Probably system malfunction, Battlemaster Zeftar decided. These simulation environments are complex. Technical problems are to be expected. 10 minutes later, a Threk supply depot exploded. The massive armored facility was reduced to twisted metal and scattered debris in seconds. General Korthak reviewed the security footage, but the recording showed nothing unusual before the explosion. One moment the depot was intact, the next it was gone. Sabotage, he declared. But by whom? No enemy forces were detected in that sector. More incidents followed, with increasing frequency. A Vorthak command post lost all power and life support, forcing the bio-enhanced soldiers to evacuate before their specialized environment suits failed. SkyClan aerial units reported that their navigation systems were being jammed by unknown sources. Aquatic Syndicate underwater bases began taking on water as their hull seals mysteriously failed. The alien commanders gathered in an emergency meeting through their communication systems, their forces still spread across the massive battlefield. None of them could explain what was happening to their carefully planned military operations. "This is not normal combat," Admiral Vothran bubbled angrily. "Someone is attacking our infrastructure instead of fighting our warriors." "But who?" demanded Commander Altheris. "We are the only forces in the simulation. Unless The realization hit all of them at the same time. The humans had not retreated or malfunctioned. They were still in the simulation. But they were not fighting the way civilized species were supposed to fight. Impossible, General Korthak stated firmly. 4 primitives cannot threaten organized armies numbering in the thousands. Their technology is inferior to ours in every way. As if responding to his words, the command center's main communication system failed. Warning lights flashed as backup systems struggled to maintain contact with forces in the field. In the space of minutes, the carefully coordinated alien military machine began falling apart. Battlemaster Zeftar tried to expand his psychic powers to locate the human soldiers, but his mental reach was being blocked by some kind of interference. His crystal crown flickered as electronic noise disrupted his concentration. Across the battlefield, alien warriors found themselves cut off from their command structures, their supply lines severed, and their advanced equipment failing at critical moments. They were still the most powerful fighters in the galaxy, but they were becoming isolated and confused. Somewhere in the chaos, 4 human soldiers moved like ghosts through the simulated terrain. They were not interested in glorious combat or honorable victory. They had a different understanding of what war really meant. The aliens were about to learn that humans did not fight to prove their strength. Humans fought to win. The 3rd hour of the simulation brought complete chaos to the alien forces. What had started as organized military exercises between civilized species had become something entirely different. The humans were not playing by the rules that governed warfare throughout the galaxy. General Korthak stood in his damaged command center, watching his tactical displays flicker and fail. Half of his communication networks were down. Supply convoys were exploding without warning. Advanced sensor arrays were going offline one by one. His 1,000-warrior army was still intact, but they were becoming blind and isolated. "Status report," he demanded through his power armor's speakers. "Sir, we've lost contact with battalions 3, 7, and 12, reported his communications officer. "Supply Depot Alpha is gone. Depot Beta is under some kind of electronic attack. The main sensor array has been destroyed by unknown explosives." "What about enemy casualties?" Korthak asked, knowing the answer would not be good. 0 confirmed. "Kills, sir. We haven't even seen the humans yet." In the mountain stronghold, Battlemaster Zeftar was having similar problems. His psychic warriors were the most elite fighters in Kalani space, but their mental powers were useless against enemies. They could not locate. Worse, someone was systematically destroying their meditation crystals, the devices that amplified their psychic abilities. "How is this possible?" he asked his second-in-command. "My warriors can sense hostile thoughts from kilometers away. How are 4 primitive soldiers moving unseen through our territory?" "Master, perhaps they are not moving through our territory," his aide suggested carefully. "Perhaps they were already here before we arrived." The implications of that statement made Zeftar's crystal crown flicker with worry. Had the humans infiltrated their positions during deployment? How long had they been hiding in plain sight, studying alien tactics and planning their attacks? War Alpha Grathik was discovering that his bio-enhanced senses were no help against human opponents. His warriors could track prey by scent across vast distances, but the humans left no trail to follow. They could detect the heat signatures of enemies hiding behind solid rock, but the humans generated no heat signatures to detect. "They fight like ghosts," one of his pack leaders reported. "Our acid projectiles hit nothing but empty air. Our poisoned claws strike shadows. These beings do not exist in the same reality as us." Across the simulated battlefield, the pattern was repeating. Admiral Vothron's aquatic forces found their underwater bases flooding as life support systems failed. Commander Altheris watched his flying warriors crash as their navigation equipment was sabotaged. The Hive Collective lost entire tunnel networks when explosive charges collapsed key passages. The alien commanders tried to adapt their tactics, but every change they made seemed to work against them. When they concentrated their forces for security, critical facilities in undefended areas were destroyed. When they spread out to cover more territory, isolated units vanished without trace. "This is not warfare," Admiral Vothron declared during an emergency command conference. "This is terrorism." "It is effective terrorism," Battlemaster Zeftar admitted reluctantly. "Our armies are intact, but our ability to use them is being systematically eliminated." General Korthak was studying damage reports when his tactical officer made a disturbing discovery. "Sir, I've analyzed the attack patterns. The humans are not targeting our warriors directly. They're destroying infrastructure, communications, supply lines, and command systems." "What does that accomplish?" "Dead commanders cannot surrender, but alive ones can." "Sir, I think that's exactly the point. They want us alive and aware when we realize we've lost." The realization hit Korthak like a plasma blast to the chest. The humans were not trying to kill alien warriors in glorious combat. They were proving that killing was unnecessary when you could make your enemies helpless instead. Captain Lee Min-ho's voice suddenly came over the main communication channel, calm and professional, despite the chaos surrounding his words. "Attention all forces, this is Earth Military Command. We are requesting immediate surrender of all opposing units." The alien commanders stared at their communication devices in shock. How had a human signal reached their secure networks? Their encryption systems were supposed to be unbreakable. "On what grounds do you request surrender?" General Korthak demanded. "My forces have suffered minimal casualties. We are still combat effective." "General, please check your tactical displays," Captain Lee replied politely. Korthak looked at his screens and felt his warrior's pride crumble. The tactical display showed his forces surrounded by red indicators, enemy positions that had appeared as if by magic. Every major unit was marked with targeting symbols. Every command post was bracketed by artillery coordinates. Every escape route was blocked by hostile forces. But that was impossible. He had 1,000 warriors in the best power armor ever built. How could 4 humans with primitive weapons threaten such a force? "Battlemaster Zeftar, are you seeing this?" he asked. "Over the command network." "Confirmed," came the shaken reply. "My psychic warriors are completely surrounded. I cannot sense how they got into position, but the targeting data shows perfect firing solutions on all our locations." War Alpha Grath X bio-enhanced sensors were screaming warnings as targeting lasers painted his forces from dozens of directions. "This is impossible. 4 soldiers cannot establish simultaneous firing positions across hundreds of square kilometers." "Admiral Vothron to all commands." The aquatic leader's voice was distorted by stress. "My underwater sensors show explosive charges placed on every critical structure in our bases. Detonation could occur at any moment." Commander Altheris tried to launch his flyers for reconnaissance, only to discover that the humans had somehow disabled every aircraft guidance system simultaneously. "My entire Air Force is grounded. How did they access our flight computers?" Staff Sergeant Kim Boram's voice joined the conversation, her tone as calm as her captain's. "Electronic warfare capabilities, Commander. Your systems have excellent defensive protocols, but they were designed to stop alien hackers. Human cyber attack methods use different principles. The alien leaders were beginning to understand that they faced an enemy unlike anything in their experience. These humans did not fight for glory or honor or territorial dominance. They fought to achieve specific objectives using whatever methods proved most effective. "What are your surrender terms?" Battlemaster Zeftar asked, his psychic pride finally overcome by tactical reality. "Immediate cessation of hostile activities," Captain Lee replied. "Weapons safed. Forces withdrawn to designated areas. Command authority transferred to human coordination. Standard military surrender protocols." General Korthak wanted to refuse, but his tactical officer was showing him new data that made resistance pointless. "Sir, they've also compromised our power armor systems. They can shut down our life support remotely." The demonstration that followed was gentle but unmistakable. Every alien warrior felt their armor's environmental controls flicker briefly, just long enough to prove the humans could disable them permanently if necessary. "How?" Korthak whispered, not really expecting an answer. Lieutenant Park Da-hyun responded anyway, her voice carrying a hint of sympathy. "Your equipment is very advanced, General, but it's also networked and computerized. Human soldiers trained to fight in environments where nothing works properly. We learned to break things long before we learned to build them." One by one, the alien commanders acknowledged defeat. Their forces had been outmaneuvered, outthought, and outfought by 4 humans using basic equipment and unconventional tactics. The simulation ended with the most one-sided victory in galactic military history. Not a single human soldier had been injured. Not a single alien warrior had been killed. But every major alien force had been rendered combat ineffective through methods they did not understand and could not counter. In the command center overlooking the battlefield, the alien observers sat in stunned silence. They had witnessed something that challenged their fundamental understanding of warfare itself. Earth had not sent superior warriors or advanced technology. They had sent 4 people who understood that war was not a game with rules, but a problem to be solved by any means necessary. The implications of that realization would haunt galactic military thinking for years to come. The aftermath of the simulation left the alien commanders in a state of shocked confusion. They had gathered in Nexus Station's main briefing room, still trying to understand what had happened to their forces. The room was large enough to hold representatives from all 12 species, but the atmosphere was tense and uncomfortable. General Korthak sat heavily in his chair, his massive power armor making mechanical noises as it adjusted to his movements. His red and gold paint job, once a symbol of pride and victory, now seemed to mock his defeat. "I demand an explanation," he said, his voice amplified through his suit's speakers. "How did 4 humans neutralize 5,000 of our finest warriors?" Captain Lee Min-ho stood at the front of the room with his 3 team members. They looked calm and relaxed, as if they had just completed a routine training exercise rather than achieving the most decisive military victory in galactic history. "Would you like a tactical breakdown of our operations?" Captain Lee offered politely. "I can explain our methods if you're interested in learning." Battlemaster Zeftar's crystal crown flickered with agitation. "Your methods were unconventional. We expected honorable combat between warriors, not attacks on infrastructure and support systems." Sergeant Major Cho stepped forward. "With respect, Battlemaster, we were told this was a military demonstration. In human warfare, there is no honor in fighting fair when lives are at stake. We use whatever tactics give us the best chance of victory." War Alpha Grathek leaned forward, his bio-enhanced form intimidating even while seated. "But you did not engage our forces directly. You avoided combat with our warriors entirely. Lieutenant Park nodded. That's correct, War Alpha. Direct engagement with your forces would have been tactically unsound. Your warriors are individually superior to humans in strength, speed, and weapons technology. Fighting you on equal terms would have resulted in our defeat. The alien commanders exchanged glances. This was not how military leaders were supposed to think. Where was the pride in martial skill? Where was the glory of combat? Where was the honor of testing strength against strength? Admiral Vothran's water-filled helmet bubbled as he spoke. Then how did you achieve victory? If you could not match our warriors in combat, what gave you the advantage? Staff Sergeant Kim activated a holographic display showing the simulation battlefield. We didn't need to match your warriors, Admiral. We needed to make your warriors irrelevant. The display showed the movement patterns of the 4 human soldiers throughout the exercise. Instead of engaging enemy forces, they had moved constantly. Through undefended areas, striking at targets the aliens had never considered important. Communications networks, Kim explained, highlighting destroyed relay stations. Supply depots, power generation facilities, command and control systems, navigation beacons, sensor arrays. We identified the infrastructure that your forces depended on and systematically eliminated it. Commander Altheris spread his wings in agitation. But those targets had no military value. They were support systems, not strategic objectives. Captain Lee smiled grimly. Commander, those support systems were the only thing that made your armies function as organized forces. Without communications, your units couldn't coordinate. Without supplies, they couldn't maintain operations. Without command systems, they couldn't receive orders or adapt to changing conditions. The truth was beginning to dawn on the alien leaders. Their concept of warfare was based on direct confrontation between organized armies. They fought for territory, resources, and dominance through superior force and tactical skill. Victory went to whoever could defeat enemy warriors in honorable combat. Humans had a completely different approach to warfare. They identified weaknesses in enemy capabilities and exploited those weaknesses without regard for honor or tradition. They fought to win, not to prove their strength. This is not how civilized species conduct warfare, Battlemaster Zeftar protested. Combat should be between warriors, not attacks on defenseless infrastructure. Sergeant Major Cho's expression hardened. Battlemaster with respect. That's the attitude of someone who has never faced an enemy that wanted to exterminate them. Completely. When your survival is at stake, the only rule is to survive by any means necessary. Dr. Yoon Hai-ri entered the briefing room at that moment, carrying a tablet loaded with information. Her timing was perfect. The alien commanders were ready to hear explanations they would not have accepted earlier. Gentlemen and ladies, she began, addressing the assembled alien leaders. I think it would help if you understood how human warfare evolved differently from yours. She activated her own holographic display, showing Earth's solar system and the blue-green world that had produced humanity. Most species in this galaxy evolved on worlds with abundant resources and relatively stable environments. Your ancestors developed warfare as a means of competition between organized groups, tribes, nations, or species competing for territory and dominance. The display shifted to show alien homeworlds, lush planets with gentle climates and plentiful resources. Then it returned to Earth, highlighting the harsh conditions that had shaped human evolution. Earth is what we call a death world, Doctor. Yoon continued. High gravity, extreme weather, active volcanism, and ice ages that lasted for thousands of years. Everything on Earth evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most galactic species within hours. She showed images of Earth's predators, creatures that had driven human evolution through millions of years of constant threat. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on a planet where nearly everything was trying to eat them. We developed warfare not as competition between organized groups, but as a survival strategy against overwhelming odds. General Korthak studied the images with growing understanding. You're saying human military doctrine is based on survival, not conquest? Exactly, Dr. Yoon confirmed. When humans fight, we're not trying to prove our strength or win honor. We're trying to eliminate threats to our survival. That makes us fundamentally different from species that developed formal combat traditions. She showed historical footage from Earth's wars, soldiers fighting in conditions that made the alien commanders uncomfortable just to watch. Humans crawling through mud and snow, hiding in ruins, using improvised weapons, doing whatever was necessary to stay alive and complete their missions. Your warriors trained to fight other organized armies, Dr. Yoon explained. Human soldiers trained to fight anything, anywhere, under any conditions. We specialize in asymmetric warfare, defeating superior enemies through unconventional methods. War Alpha. Grathek was beginning to understand the implications. So when we brought thousands of warriors to face 4 humans, we were actually playing into their strengths? Lieutenant Park nodded. Your forces were designed for large-scale conventional warfare. Our training focused on small unit operations in hostile environments. The more overwhelming your numbers seemed, the more we relied on methods you weren't prepared to counter. The alien commanders sat in silence, processing this information. Their pride had been hurt by the defeat, but they were beginning to realize that they had not lost to superior warriors. They had lost to a completely different way of thinking about combat. Admiral Vothran finally broke the silence. If this represents human military capabilities, why does Earth prefer diplomatic solutions? You clearly have the advantage in any conflict. Captain Lee's expression became serious. Admiral, what you witnessed today was 4 soldiers operating under strict rules of engagement. We were instructed to treat this as a training exercise and to use non-lethal methods only. The implications of that statement hung in the air like a physical presence. The aliens began to realize that they had not seen human warfare at its most effective. They had seen humans being gentle. The briefing was about to take a much darker turn. Dr. Yoon Hairi looked around the room at the assembled alien commanders. Their body language showed confusion, concern, and growing unease. They were beginning to understand that today's demonstration had only revealed a small portion of human military capabilities. What Captain Lee is trying to tell you, she said carefully, is that the exercise you just witnessed represented human forces operating under severe restrictions. The team was specifically instructed to minimize casualties and avoid revealing advanced capabilities. General Korthak's power armor creaked as he leaned forward. What kind of restrictions? Colonel Nam Yu-jin entered the briefing room at that moment. She was Earth's military attaché to the Galactic Council, a woman in her 50s who had spent 30 years in various combat zones before taking a diplomatic position. Her presence immediately changed the atmosphere in the room. I can answer that question, Colonel Nam said as she took position next to Dr. Yoon. She activated her own holographic display, showing a list of prohibited tactics and weapons. The team was forbidden from using psychological warfare, biological agents, chemical weapons, cyber warfare beyond basic disruption, advanced Earth weaponry, lethal force protocols, or civilian infrastructure targeting. Battlemaster Zeftar studied the list with growing alarm. Those restrictions seem extensive. What would happen if human forces operated without such limitations? Colonel Nam considered her answer carefully. She had been hoping to avoid this conversation, but the alien commanders needed to understand why Earth preferred diplomacy over demonstrations of strength. Perhaps it would be better to show you, she said reluctantly, but I want to emphasize that what you're about to see represents historical Earth conflicts, not current policy. Modern human military doctrine has evolved beyond these methods. The holographic display shifted to show archived footage from Earth's military history. The alien commanders watched in fascination as human soldiers demonstrated tactics they had never imagined. The first images showed psychological warfare operations. Human forces using propaganda, deception, and fear tactics to break enemy morale without firing a shot. Entire armies surrendering because they believed they were facing overwhelming forces that existed only in their imagination. Humans discovered early in our history that the enemy's mind is often more important than their weapons, Colonel Nam explained. Why fight a battle when you can convince your opponents that fighting is hopeless? Admiral Vothron's water-filled helmet bubbled nervously. These tactics seem manipulative. They're effective, Colonel Nam replied simply, and they save lives on both sides. The display showed more disturbing examples. Human forces using biological and chemical agents to deny territory to enemies. Soldiers operating in contaminated environments that would kill other species. Weapons designed to cause specific types of injuries that would overwhelm enemy medical systems. War Alpha Grathex's bio-enhanced sensors were detecting stress pheromones from several alien commanders. These methods seem designed to cause suffering rather than achieve quick victory. Sometimes suffering is more effective than death, Colonel Nam said grimly. A dead soldier removes one fighter from the enemy army. A wounded soldier removes 3. The casualty and 2 people to care for them. Humans learn to think strategically about these calculations. The footage continued with examples of cyber warfare that made Staff Sergeant Kim's earlier demonstration look primitive. Human forces completely taking over enemy computer systems, feeding false information to command networks, turning enemy weapons against their own troops. Commander Altheris was visibly disturbed by what he was seeing. You can make enemy equipment attack its own users? Human computer specialists have been fighting cyber warfare for centuries, Kim replied. Every system can be compromised if you understand how it thinks. Your technology is very advanced, but it's also very trusting. It assumes other systems will behave logically and predictably. The most shocking footage came last. Human forces engaging in total warfare operations, where civilian and military targets became indistinguishable. Cities burning as strategic resources were denied to enemies. Scorched earth tactics that left entire regions uninhabitable. Nuclear weapons turning populated areas into radioactive wastelands. The alien commanders sat in horrified silence as they watched the destructive capabilities of human warfare unleashed without restraint. This was not the honorable combat between warriors they understood. This was systematic destruction designed to eliminate entire civilizations. How many of your own people died in these conflicts? Battlemaster Zeftar asked quietly. Colonel. Nam's expression became grim. In our most destructive war, over 70 million humans died. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was that we kept fighting anyway. Human soldiers will continue operations even when their survival becomes mathematically impossible. She showed them footage of human forces fighting in hopeless situations. soldiers defending positions until they ran out of ammunition, then using improvised weapons, then fighting with their bare hands until they physically could not continue. This is what human warfare looks like when we stop being polite. Colonel Nam continued. We don't fight until we achieve victory or negotiate surrender. We fight until the enemy stops existing or we do. There is no middle ground, no honor guard, no mercy for the defeated. General Korthok was studying tactical data from Earth's historical conflicts. Your casualty rates are extraordinary. Most civilized species would surrender rather than accept such losses. Most civilized species didn't evolve on Earth, Dr. Yoon added. Humans developed in an environment where surrender meant death, where mercy was a luxury that got you killed, where the only choices were victory or extinction. That psychology doesn't disappear just because we developed space travel, Admiral. Vothron was reviewing the psychological profiles of human soldiers. According to this data, your warriors show abnormally high resistance to stress, pain, and psychological trauma. How is this possible? Natural selection, Dr. Yoon replied. For millions of years, the humans who survived to reproduce were the ones who could keep fighting when everything seemed hopeless. We literally bred ourselves to be more stubborn than death. The alien commanders were beginning to understand why Earth had seemed so reluctant to demonstrate military capabilities. It was not weakness that kept human soldiers away from diplomatic meetings. It was consideration for the other species who would have to live with the knowledge of what humans could do. Commander Altheris finally asked the question that was troubling all of them. If human forces are this dangerous, why do you limit yourselves to diplomatic solutions? You could dominate the entire galaxy. Colonel Nam's answer chilled the room. Because we remember what happened the last time humans decided that might makes right. We nearly destroyed our own planet and everything living on it. We learned that our greatest enemy is not alien invaders or hostile environments. It's ourselves. She showed them images of Earth during its recovery from global warfare. A planet scarred by weapons that had torn the very atmosphere. Cities built on the ruins of previous cities. Memorials to billions of dead that served as reminders of human destructive potential. We keep our soldiers away from peace talks, Colonel Nam concluded, because we know what we are. We are predators, pretending to be civilized. We are weapons of mass destruction wearing diplomatic suits. The moment we let our military nature control our decisions is the moment peace becomes impossible. The briefing room fell silent as the alien commanders absorbed the full implications of what they had learned. They had demanded proof of human military strength, thinking Earth was hiding weakness. Instead, they had discovered that Earth was hiding something far more dangerous. They were hiding the fact that humans were the most terrifying warriors in the galaxy, and they knew it. 3 days later, the Galactic Peace Council convened an emergency session aboard Harmony Prime. The 12 species representatives sat around the circular table, but the atmosphere was completely different from previous meetings, where once there had been casual arrogance and dismissive attitudes toward Earth. Now there was careful respect and barely concealed nervousness. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho sat in his usual place, wearing the same simple gray suit and carrying the same thermos of coffee. But the alien delegates no longer saw him as a weak diplomat from an insignificant species. They now understood that he represented the most dangerous military force in the galaxy, and his calm demeanor had taken on an entirely different meaning. Chairman Vexthul called the session to order with obvious reluctance. His metallic voice carried none of its usual authority as he addressed the gathered representatives. We are here to discuss the recent military demonstration at Nexus Station and its implications for galactic security. General Korthak spoke. First, his power armor's speakers making his words echo through the chamber. The Threx military cast formally acknowledges that we misunderstood Earth's military capabilities. We apologize for questioning humanity's commitment to peace. Battlemaster Zeftar's crystal crown flickered as he added his own statement. The Kalani Collective recognizes that Earth's diplomatic approach comes from a position of strength, not weakness. We withdraw our previous concerns about human participation in these summits. One by one, the other species representatives offered similar statements. The proud warriors who had once mocked Earth's lack of military escorts now seemed eager to avoid any suggestion that humans should bring soldiers to diplomatic meetings. Ambassador Kim listened patiently to each apology, sipping his coffee and taking notes. When they finished, he set down his cup and looked around the table with the same mild expression he had always worn. "I appreciate your understanding," he said simply, "but I think it's important that we discuss why this situation developed and how we can prevent similar misunderstandings in the future." Admiral Votheron's helmet bubbled nervously. "Ambassador, we now understand that Earth prefers diplomatic solutions because you have no need to prove your military strength. Your capabilities speak for themselves." Kim shook his head gently. "Admiral, you're still missing the point. We don't send military representatives to peace summits not because we're strong, but because we're dangerous. There's a difference." He stood up and walked to the center of the circular table, where a holographic projector displayed Earth's diplomatic policies. Every species in this council developed warfare as competition between organized groups. You fight for resources, territory, dominance, or honor. When you win, you integrate the defeated into your civilization, or allow them to maintain their independence under new terms. The display showed examples of alien conflicts throughout galactic history. Even the most brutal wars had followed certain unwritten rules about protecting non-combatants, preserving cultural heritage, and allowing for eventual reconciliation between enemies. Humans evolved warfare as a survival mechanism, Kim continued. When we fight, we're not competing with our enemies. We're trying to eliminate threats to our existence. That fundamental difference makes us incompatible with civilized warfare. Commander Altheris shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Ambassador, surely human civilization has evolved beyond such primitive instincts." "Has it?" Kim asked quietly. He activated another display showing Earth's current military doctrine. "Our generals still train for total warfare scenarios. Our soldiers still learn to fight until the enemy surrenders unconditionally or ceases to exist. Our weapons are still designed to achieve complete victory regardless of cost." The alien representative studied the information with growing unease. Earth's military planning included scenarios for planetary bombardment, population displacement, resource denial, and systematic destruction of enemy civilization. These were not the tactics of a species that fought for limited political objectives. "The difference," Kim explained, "is that we choose not to use these capabilities. Every day, Earth's government makes a conscious decision to pursue diplomatic solutions instead of military ones. But that choice requires constant effort and vigilance." Dr. Yoon Hai-ri joined Kim at the center of the table. She had been waiting outside the chamber, ready to provide additional context if needed. What the ambassador is trying to explain is that human nature hasn't changed just because we developed space travel. We're still the same species that nearly destroyed our own planet through warfare. She showed them current psychological profiles of human soldiers. The data revealed stress responses, aggression levels, and combat effectiveness ratings that were far outside normal ranges for galactic species. Humans were literally built for war in ways that other civilizations could not match. Every human in our military is a potential weapon of mass destruction, Dr. Yoon continued. They're trained to think tactically about civilian populations, infrastructure targets, and total resource denial. They cannot turn off these thought patterns just because they're in a diplomatic setting. Defense Minister Park Soo-jin appeared. Via quantum communication link, her image projected above the conference table. She had been following the discussion from Earth and felt it was time to add her perspective. Honored representatives, she began, I want you to understand something important. The 4 soldiers you met at Nexus Station are not exceptional human warriors. They are typical examples of Earth's military personnel. We have millions more just like them. The implications of that statement settled over the chamber like a physical weight. The alien delegates realized they had witnessed a demonstration by average human soldiers, not elite special forces. The capabilities that had so thoroughly defeated their finest warriors represented ordinary Earth military standards. More importantly, Minister Park continued, those soldiers were operating under peacetime rules of engagement. They were instructed to treat the exercise as a training scenario with full safety protocols. In actual warfare, human forces operate under very different parameters. General Korthak found his voice with difficulty. Minister, what would happen if Earth's military faced a real threat to human survival? Park's expression became grave. General, I pray you never have to find out. But I can tell you that human history provides examples. When we believe our existence is threatened, we become something that other species cannot understand or predict. We stop thinking about honor, mercy, or proportional response. We think only about eliminating the threat completely. Ambassador Kim returned to his seat and picked up his thermos. This is why Earth never brings military representatives to peace summits. We learned from our own history that mixing soldiers with diplomacy creates a dangerous mindset. When you bring weapons to a negotiation, you start thinking about using them. He poured himself more coffee and looked around the table. Every human soldier is trained to identify weaknesses in enemy defenses, to plan for total victory scenarios, and to think of warfare as a problem that requires complete solutions. We cannot ask them to sit in a room with potential enemies and not instinctively plan how to defeat those enemies. Battlemaster Zeftar's crystal crown had stopped flickering as he processed this information. So Earth sends diplomats to peace summits because you want peace, not because you need it. Exactly, Kim replied. We choose diplomacy because we understand the alternative better than any other species in the galaxy. We've seen what happens when human military thinking takes control of human policy. We nearly exterminated ourselves. The chamber fell silent as the full implications became clear. Earth's apparent weakness in diplomatic settings was actually their greatest strength, the wisdom to know when not to use their most dangerous capabilities. Chairman Vexthul finally spoke into the silence. The Galactic Council formally recognizes Earth's diplomatic approach as appropriate for all future peace summits. No species will question humanity's commitment to peaceful solutions or request demonstrations of military capability. The vote was unanimous. As the session ended, Ambassador Kim gathered his papers and closed his briefcase. The alien representatives watched him carefully, seeing him in an entirely new light. This quiet man in a simple suit was not a weak diplomat from a primitive world. He was a guardian standing between the galaxy and humanity's most dangerous instincts. Admiral Vothron approached Kim as the chamber emptied. "Ambassador, may I ask a personal question?" "Of course, Admiral. Do you ever worry that Earth's restraint might not be enough? That humanity might someday choose warfare over diplomacy?" Kim sipped his coffee thoughtfully. "Every day, Admiral. Every single day. That's why we keep trying to build a better galaxy through peaceful cooperation. Because the alternative is not something any of us wants to live with." As Kim walked toward the docking bay where his ship waited, the alien representatives watched him go. They finally understood the real reason Earth never brought their army to peace summits. It was not because humans were too weak to fight. It was because they were too dangerous to unleash. The greatest act of strength they had learned was knowing when not to use it, and in that wisdom lay the true foundation of galactic peace.